Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to remind you, Bodhicitta, in order to benefit sentient beings and your practice with the listening, contemplating and meditation will be tremendously beneficial for all sentient beings to bring them to the state of omniscience. With that attitude, then I would like to ask you to listen this teaching attentively. Now, our discussion is still the preliminary parts. There are two aspects of preliminary practices. One that is the negative attitude, and then the other one is the correct attitude. And now we are discussing the correct attitude, but in this context, still explaining some parts of negative aspects which we have to abandon. So today, this teaching explains the 8 incompatible propensities, that leave no freedom to practice the Dhamma. Number 1, it says here, people who are tightly bound to their worldly commitment, wealth, pleasures, children, relatives, and so forth, are so preoccupied with the strenuous effort entailed by these things that they have no time to practice the Dhamma. If you involve, this is simple, yet have to explain. If you involved worldly life, of course everybody is involved in worldly life, but if you involve overwhelmingly, then there is no freedom for the Dhamma practice, because you are completely or tightly bound to with the worldly commitment. Wealth, it has explained wealth. For wealth, then you have to spend a lot of time for the wealth, to collect money and to do the business, etc. And the pleasures, relatives, family, and so forth. So you are completely preoccupied. Then you can't put your time into the Dhamma practice. So therefore, if you really wish to be practiced well Dhamma, then just like Milarepa and the great masters in the past, they have given up all these wealth, pleasures, and worldly commitments, etc. Then they spend their time entirely for the solitude retreat. With this attitude, so one can overcome the pain and the sufferings of the samsara. So that's the number 1. Number 2, some people lack any scrap of humanity, and their nature is so depraved that they are unable to improve their behavior. Even a genuine spiritual teacher would find it very difficult to set them on the noble path, as the sublime beings of the past said, the abilities of the disciple can be shaped, but not his or her basic character. Now, some people or some individuals with the Dhamma practice, it's almost unable to change your basic behavior or to improve their behavior, because seemingly you are practicing Dhamma, but actually if you examine carefully your intention and attitude and your practice, yourself not really in the sense of Dhamma practice, because your physical attitude is far from the Dhamma practice, as well as your speech and the mental attitude far from the practice. So that means you are unable to bring together your attitude along with the Dhamma practice. So these two dissociated, not associated. Because of this, then you are lacking. There is no improvement that you are unable to see the improvement in your Dhamma practice. Even you have met up the greatest master, or well-known master, or the qualified master and the teacher, and then you have been received the profound teachings, excellent teachings, yet you are unable to bring these teachings on into the path. Therefore, yourself is still separate from the practice. Your practice is at the side and yourself in this side. So that side teaching and practice and this side yourself still are separate and unable to bring them together. So simply relying on master or teacher, spiritual master, or your root guru, if you fail to bring their words and instructions into your practice, then they can't do anything for you. And nowadays, everybody is very excited with the root guru, and they also do concern about the root guru, and they don't concern about the guru, but they do concern about the root guru. And they are very excited with the root guru. And in what sense they are too excited with the root guru, I don't know, and their idea. To me, in the sense of root guru, is the person who really tackled your fundamental ignorance and pass you the profound teachings that make you change completely. So if that sort of a performance of the teaching ever do, then we or I should concern this particular person as a root guru. So that's how we explain and we value the characteristic of the root guru, and we consider as a characteristic of the root guru. But still, if you are unable to bring his or her teaching into the path or into the practice, then the root guru is always around you and live together, stay together and walk together. It won't work for you. So therefore it says here, and some disciples or some practitioners or some people, they could make development or improvement of their basic quality, but yet they are unable to change their basic attitude. So your basic attitude is still there, although at the side here, your basic quality is improving, and you can experience some improvement of like your compassion, loving kindness, and the devotion towards the lineage. But at the same time, if you, for a day, or for a month, or for a weeks away from the teaching or practice, then your old, the negative fundamental attitude relapsed. So then it will block for further improvement of your practice. So your negative attitude is still, you can be seen around there. So this shows that your basic or fundamental problem is still existing, which means your practice is still not really being able to work with your basic attitude. So this is a problem. So in this teaching it says, simply relying on spiritual master or perfect master would not be beneficial. Along with the teaching, along with the practice, we should examine our attitude. This is what we call practice. When you say, or when you consider, saying, I'm practicing, we are practicing. So what does it mean? Practice means the teachings, whatever you receive, you bring it into the path. And make sure that I am doing this practice correctly. I'm sure, or make sure that I don't waste my time. So just being so excited with your teacher or guru is not really the beneficial. It's not really the way we apply the Dhamma within. So all should be associated, teacher, master, teaching, practice together. That's how Gampopa says that the study, contemplation, meditation should be combined together, and at the same time I have to pay serious attention with my attitude. Does really this teaching help me or not? So day by day, or the hour by hour, whatsoever. So we have to examine it and make sure that I'm really doing well with the Dhamma practice. This is number 2. And the number 3 is a person who feels not the slightest consternation either on hearing of lower rebirths and the ills of samsara, or in the face of this present life's sufferings, has no determination whatsoever to liberate himself or herself from the samsara, and therefore no reason to engage in Dhamma practice. To bring my mind into the path of Dhamma, I should have a basic sense of understanding or basic sense of the renunciation. That's why in the Mahamudra prayer it says the revulsion is the food of meditation. So the revulsion or the renunciation, when Buddha taught Four Noble Truths in Sarnath in India, the Four Noble Truths are very much based on the sense of the revulsion or the renunciation that let you feel the disgust, the samsaric pleasure and the samsaric wealth, and make change your mental attitude. That's how the sense of a Four Noble Truths teaching is. So if you lack of that sense, then here it says, you are not scared of the suffering, you are not scared of the miseries, and you are not scared of the defeats of the samsara, then there is no way or no place to perform teaching. And even though teaching is there, practice is there, so it will not work for you because you are still lacking the basic quality or basic understanding to perceive these teachings. So then you cannot combine this teaching along with your mental attitude. So what we should have basic sense is the understanding of the how samsara is the unpleasant. Even the pleasant you consider as a pleasant, but from the perfect wisdom, the point of view, so the pleasant situation is a very much unpleasant situation. So you are unable to see unpleasant situation as the pleasant situation is as unpleasant situation because of the wisdom. It is still lacking the power of wisdom to see the reality. So you are still out of the reality. You are not in the state of the reality. So therefore, for benefiting or to bring disciples or practitioners into the right path, one should always need to be reminded the how suffering and how problematic the samsara and these three low realms, as well as in the samsara in general. Then, because why? The negative habitual tendency is very heavy, very strong. So with the few teachings, or the teaching with few times of the teaching, cannot really make change your attitude. So we need patience to carry on teachings and practice for long term, because to change your basic attitude is not simple at all. It takes time and energy, so must not give up your effort and your hard work, because there are difficulties when you do practice in the Dharma. Of course, when you do solitary retreat, it's rather more difficult. It's difficult and very difficult. And even you do sometimes a session, 4 sessions or 6 sessions a day, and you feel really tired, and there's a lot of complaints. So you see, the lacking your efforts and the diligence and the hard work with the Dharma practice is very limited, your practice. Your study is in the state of limitation, your contemplation, your meditation is very limited. Whereas your negative actions and your negative habitual tendencies are so profound, so it's not suitable. Doing less, but your expectation is too high. So it doesn't match and it doesn't really come together. So therefore, your expectation is high, then your hard work should be as much as high as your expectation. With that attitude, then you can change your basic intention and the basic the attitude. That's the number 3. Now number 4 is, here it says, to have no faith at all, either in the true Dhamma or in the teacher. Shuts off any access to the teachings and bars entry to the path of liberation. Now faith is something like devotion. Faith, general faith and the particular faith. The general faith, you can build up this sense of faith just simply reading some books and the teachings, and you understand what is a faith in general and what does faith work for you. This is very general. But here what we need is this special or particular faith. That is we call the devotion. The devotion or faith along with the wisdom, proper understanding. And you should know the benefit if you are with the faith, and you should know the failure if no faith. So with that knowledge, and you will choose, or you have chosen the correct faith, the faith that is combined or associated with the wisdom or proper understanding. If lack of these kind of the faiths and the devotions, then there is no way or there is no path for you to enter into the Dhamma. Because the Dhamma in the sense here is something that you make application, so that once you apply the willing, then make sure that everything you can make a change. And who could see that this change, and you could see this, and nobody can see your changes. I could see my change, but nobody can see my change. So through the practice, through the the training of our mind, or my mind, there I can see the changes, the slight change. Then you move to the big change. And after big change, we call the realization is there. So you have been realized the true nature. So through the change, or there are all kinds of a process to reach to the level of change of your attitude, then the realization is adopted. Therefore, once you shut off any access to the teaching, then there is no way to be practiced. Sometimes you can see the crowd, when some teachings perform and some initiations perform, and you can see the crowd. But it's simple to see or know their intention is rather very simple. They are not attending, or they are not participating this ceremony for tackling the fundamental ignorance. They are just simply looking for blessing, temporary blessing, because you feel or you experience that some physical illnesses and some mental disturbances or chaotic situations are there. So you believe this Dhamma teaching or this performance of the initiation or this performance of the puja will be helpful. Never ever think of your basic problematic situation. So what we need to concern is our basic problematic situation. That is you call ignorance or dualistic mental attitude. So that dualistic mental attitude is with you at all times and never ceased. Although you tend to do meditation or study or do some prayers, but these methods, these remedies are never for tackling this problematic situation. So that's how the time, energy you have spent too much, yet you are unable to change your basic situation. That's how we know. I give you a simple example. When you hear bodhicitta, compassion, loving kindness, and you say, oh yes, these are great. And sometimes you even say these are the greatest. And we should have. If lacking these qualities, one cannot get liberation. One cannot bring to the path of liberation. That's very sure, you know that. But the problem is lack of bring them into the practice when after the puja or after the ceremony or after the teaching or after the retreat, you are still the same. Which means you didn't walk with that seriously. You have just a simple knowledge of this, but you don't have a serious practice. That's how you are always the same. That regardless what you do, you attend the puja, you attend the teaching, and you do the long session, or you do the long retreat, months and the years, and you spend a lot of time with your practice, and you think that you are doing well, but actually not at all. That's how, year by year, you can experience that you are totally same, always the same. You didn't change at all. Your anger is still there, your jealousy is still there, your pride is still there, and all the distracting afflictions are still there. You are unable to get rid of them at all. Maybe some degrees that you combat or press down, but you never get rid of fundamentally. That's why this fourth paragraph explains the devotion with the wisdom is needed, is compulsory. Then the number 5, people who take pleasure in harmful or negative actions and who fail to control their thoughts, words and deeds are devoid of any noble qualities and have turned away from the Dhamma. You know why some people are so negative mentally? This distinguishment or distinction between the right and the wrong, or wrong person, the right person, and the wrong motivation and the right motivation, and the wrong attitude and the right attitude. How do you distinct these two? How do you make distinction these two? Because it's simple to say this is right and this is wrong. Because here it says, your mind never be calmed. Which means your mind is always wild. Thoughts are always wild. Your attention is always wild. We tend to practice to make a better person, better society, better practitioner. Yet it turns out negatively. Sometimes you wish to go for long-term retreat, let's say 1 year retreat, or maybe 2 years, or even 6 months. You think and you believe, if I do longer retreat, and then I will become a better. That's a wrong idea. Your change does not depend on the duration or quantity. Your change very much depends on the effort and the wisdom. So the duration, time is nothing to do with your practice. So it's a simple, right? If somebody say, if you ask someone, oh, so you came out for a retreat? Yes. And how long did you do retreat? 3 weeks? Oh, very short time. So you feel something not really proper or improper. So you believe that he or she really didn't do practice well because it's only 3 weeks. But if somebody claims, regardless he really did or not, but if somebody say, oh, I did 1 year or 2 years, wow, so you are great. You are a great practitioner. But you never consider about during those 2 years, 1 year, what did he do in the retreat? So maybe he was in the retreat. Everybody believes, but who knows, maybe he's in the big city, roaming in the shopping center and having good food, right? And having fun with the friends. And after towards the 2 years, maybe go back to the cave. Then come out, say that, oh, I have done my job. So that can be possibly. So therefore, don't fool yourself. Think that longer term is better than the short term. No. To me, the practice itself is the more important than the time or duration or the length. So even you do only for 1 week, if you could make a change, or basically, fundamentally, and if you became a good person, good practitioner, then that's it. Your job is done. Practice is done. It's nothing to do with the time. Don't ever be proud with the time and the duration or years. So even if you could make a change in 1 day, that's it. If you say, I will do 3-year retreat or 4 year, then you will become more lazy. I know. I'm quite sure. So once you are in the retreat, you will say, oh, I got a time. 4 years. I can relax for a few months first, and people wouldn't notice me, what I'm doing in the cave or on my retreat. I can play my mobile phone, right? And I can use my laptop or iPad, whatever. But in 3 weeks, you wouldn't have that much time to be entertain yourself because you will be too rushed. So therefore, it says here the intention, motivation is more important. And then most important, when you say I'm doing retreat, what kind of retreat are you doing? Are you chanting, or are you reciting, or are you reading, or are you studying in the cave in the solitude retreat? That is also considerable. This is a very considerable issue. So these masters consider what is the practice or genuine practice is if you are able to calm or if you are able to tame your mind, and at least that some certain degree of your negative thoughts being able to clear up. That's the practice. That's the retreat. So the retreat in the sense, what is the retreat? Why you are running away from your family? Why did you run away from your society and from your job, from your worldly life? And because you thought the worldly life disturbed my practice, right? That's why you choose solitude retreat, and you feel unpleasant with your family, with your job, with the life in the big city, with the life with your friends, because gossips, rumors, and make you always restless, your mind. And you tend to do practice at your home, and you try to close the door and the window, ask your family members to don't disturb me for 1 hour, and you are trying to push yourself, you become very pushy your practice, because your expectations are too high. So it didn't work at all. So that throughout the day, or throughout the week, and throughout the year, regardless you are in the solitude retreat physically or not, or you are still in the big city in the crowd, or you are absolutely far away from the big city or deep in the Himalaya mountains, the place is regardless. It's not really concerned for the place. If, as long as you are able to tame your mind and calm your mind, then that's the retreat. Kadamba Master says that's the retreat. So that this retreat is with you always, day and the night, and the week and the month. Regardless, you are associated with your friends and the communities, or you're being left behind, being alone. Doesn't matter. You are not dependent on the factors. So any factors should be free from your practice. You have to be very determined with your practice. You have to commit it, your practice. So this commitment will lead you to the right path and to the right destination. So therefore, taming your mind is the retreat. So with that, you don't need particular place for meditation. If you feel that I can do meditation in Parping, example, so if you say that I'm going to Parping, so which is true? Can you hear me? Okay. Many people these days say that I'm going to Parping, I'm going to Yolmo, I'm going to somewhere where I cannot see people, where I can see only dogs, where I can see only monkeys, where I can see only birds, but I don't want to see people, because the human is the disturbance. It's quite funny, because a human never disturbs you. You disturb yourself. Human never disturb you. In Kadamba teaching, you can be solitude, of course, you can be at a solitude retreat, yet the main responsibility is within yourself. It's not from the external factors, not the human. If you are very capable to proceed with practice towards the right direction, then you need all these obstacles to overcome your powerful negative actions. So you need friends that who make you restless. If somebody entertains you always, then your practice is always the same. But if somebody need to irritate you, you need someone who irritate you, you need someone who make you restless. So this is the teaching, this is the practice, this is the object of your practice. That's what Kadamba Masters did in the past. So, therefore, the number 5 explains the taming your mind and examine your physical attitude, and your verbal attitude and your mental attitude. This is a practice. Just simply reading and chanting prayers and saying prayers and keep listening teachings. It's not really good idealistic. It's not really wise way to apply Dhamma. Applying Dhamma within is that you yourself be the witness to your attitude. When you perform the practice, doesn't mean this is really good, because it very much depends on your motivation. If your motivation is based on wrong, then your practice is nothing. So, physical attitude is not important, right? It's simple. And verbally you are reciting and the chanting prayers are not really reliable. So the best or the most reliable practice is something to do with your own mind and your mental attitude, your motivation and your intention and your willingness. So all are the important issue for the progression of your practice, to make further, or strengthen further, to develop your practice is always need to be done your examination, your basic mental attitude. Number 6, it says here, some people are no more interested in spiritual values and the Dhamma than a dog in eating grass. Since they feel no enthusiasm for the Dhamma, its qualities will never develop in their minds. If you do not have interest with the Buddha Dhamma, then the performance of teaching would not be helpful. It's just like you are trying to feed the grass to the dog. So the dog really doesn't care what you feed, right? So when you say, come here, then the minute the dog hears your voice, so his or her expect is the meat, not the grass. So when you try to feed the grass, which means you don't like the dog, right? Then eventually the dog don't like you. If you keep on doing this, it's quite a stupid thing, isn't it? So the same thing here, if you do not have a basic interest with the Buddha Dhamma or teaching practice, then regardless of what kind of a teaching performs, it will not be helpful. Mahamudra or Mahāti or Vajrayana teaching or initiation, etc. All these are methods and remedies to get rid of your fundamental problem. So this is very much depends on your interest and your willingness or interest. If you are so excited with this, so which means you have a profound interest. So with the power of your interest, so whatever you perceive the teachings, that will be beneficial for you. In short period of time, this will make a tremendous change, a tremendous benefit. So therefore, interest. In Tibetan, it's called Chuji Nama. So Nama means actually the light. So this is not Nama at all. This is dark, right? It's called Tibetan called, it's a Munpa. So in the Munpa or in the darkness, you can't see anything. For this reason, you need torchlight or the candlelight or butter light, whatsoever. There's something that makes it bright and the light and the clear. And there you can see things that you are looking forward. Similar to this teaching. So if you do not have an interest, then you are in the state of darkness. You are in the state of ignorance. That's the number. So the interest is compulsory to do proper Dhamma practice or to proceed to the proper teaching. Now number 7 is anyone who, having entered the basic vehicle, breaks his or her vows and the commitment to bodhicitta, has nowhere else to go but the lower realms. He or she will not escape from the states where there is no opportunity to practice the Dhamma. Our expectation and our practice totally conflict. Because here it says, when great masters perform the teachings, like in Vajrayana teaching, especially the high tantric teaching, where it says that everything is the display of your mind, that everything is like a manifestation of your mind. And you can see as a samsara, as a nirvana, as just a projection of your mind, nothing these notions existed somewhere inherently or truly. So they perform high tantric teaching or high the vehicle teaching. But then the problem at the same time is you ignore the basic practices like a refugee, the refuge practice, and the generating bodhicitta, and applying the mind of impermanence and the mind of the selflessness. The very basic training of our mind is being ignored because your expectations are too high. You want to enlighten in this single life. But then, because of the lack of your basic training, the lack of your basic practice, so the high tantric teachings will not be workable with you. So that means the Patrul Rinpoche should combine this together. As much as the high tantric teachings are important, that much our basic practices are important as well. The Four Noble Truths are as much as important the high tantric teachings. Taking refuge and the say prayers in everyday life is much important than the high tantric, because the high tantric teachings are based on these general teachings. So it's like staircases. One climb up one by one, not you are jumping. And number 8, anyone having entered the secret mantra vehicle breaks his or her samaya commitments to his or her teacher and the spiritual brothers and sisters will bring about his or her own ruin and theirs, destroying any respect of accomplishment. More risky in the practice of Vajrayana, because once you entered into the Vajrayana practice, then all beings in this mandala, the males are your brothers and the females are your sisters. With that perspective, the practice you do along with them will lead you to the mandala of that particular deity. We call this as a samaya. Samaya, what does simply samaya mean? So samaya means connection. You make connection with all beings, particularly in this mandala. You have to have a pure vision to each other. You have to have pure the respect to each other. So the connectivity between all of you is much more profound than the relationship in your family members. Because these connection to each other will bring you to the absolute mandala through the training of your practice, like receiving initiation and the performing the pujas. So therefore, it says that otherwise will bring about his or her own ruin and destroying the perspective of accomplishment. These are 8 propensities that lead one way from the Dhamma and the snuff out lamp of liberation. Now, what you understood from this is because before these, the 16 factors that leave no opportunity for the practice had been carefully ruled out. The people in these, the decadent times may look as if they have all the freedoms and advantages and are true practitioners of the Dhamma. Which means, in this degeneration time, although you have been qualified everything, and when someone look at you, you seem a good practitioner. You are doing practice, you are doing retreat, you are studying seemingly, but because of the impure intention or motivation, So your practice will lead you to nowhere. Therefore, don't be too rushed and don't be too excited. Examination need to be performed before entering into these profound practices. And when you examine yourself, if you do find these qualities in you, then you feel appreciated and you are ready to get into. If you feel or experience a lacking these qualities, then you have to say prayers. Because of this, with the pressures of human life, I don't want to waste the time, and I must do practice the genuine Dharma, not the fake Dharma, the genuine Dharma. So this commitment should be taken with the serious intention. And then you just walk around and running around to find a proper teacher, proper masters. So this is how the great masters did in the past, isn't it? It's not so simple when you enter into Dhamma. Simply just resting there and read the book, and then the wherever teachings are available, and you try to approach this place. And everything seems so simple, isn't it? Because you live your own country, but when you got the information or news say that, somebody is giving teaching, let's say in the West, if you live in Paris, and then you found, or somebody is giving teaching in the other places or neighbor countries, then you just simply go there and take a teaching, because it's so simple for you to go there. But you are never trying to get a particular teacher for yourself, to examine seriously and to examine thoroughly. When you try to stick on that particular person, so-called your teacher, and then repeatedly you approach this master and requesting him or her, please examine my attitude. Please tell us, or tell me at least, did I really do my practice well or not well? Did I do really practice accordingly or not? So that's sort of like an everyday basis that you can rely on someone and who could tell you very strictly, not just open teaching. It's so simple. You participate teachings, and hundreds of people, so you just participate in teaching. Okay, I got teaching, that's it. 1 week teaching, 2 weeks teaching, and you go back to home. You are still same. Nobody will examine you. You cannot make a correspondence with your master. There is no information. There is no correction. There is no examination on you, and you just try to do all practice by on your own. So that's how we cannot get through our problems. So here it says that you must get a proper master. If you do not find nearby, or you should go even so far. If you could find somewhere else, the place is a bit far from you, but still not give up. You must go there and get the teacher, get the teaching, and get the master. Request him or her, be my director, be my teacher. And don't entertain me. Be strict with me, and be wild with me, and scold at me, yell at me, and use harsh words to me. But nobody likes it these days, isn't it? If someone really so harsh towards you like Milarepa and Amarpa, I'm sure nobody will go around. I'm quite sure. So you are expecting your teacher so simple, sweet, gentle, who speaks so sweet things. Then you consider he or she is your teacher. But if somebody is very strict, the minute you enter into the door and scold from the throne, then sure you will walk away. So time changes, situation changes, so not like a long time, good old days. Now our perception, our concept is totally different. So that's why you could see a big gap between long time back and now. And the attitude is also totally different to your attitude and the attitude with that great masters in the past. That makes much big differences between your practices. After all, it says here, now these who seemingly practice Dhamma, each may think he or she is practicing Dhamma, but as long as he or she is under the sway of these additional limiting conditions, he or she is not on the true path. Because your capacity is limited, your diligence is limited, your interest is limited, and there's some topics or some lessons that you will have learned, then you feel satisfied. And you cannot carry it on continuously. Somehow in between you will stop your practice. And your practice depends on the situation and the condition. If the situation is smooth, no obstacles, quite okay, then you will try to continue your practice, meditation or study, whatever. But if something happened in between, like a physical illness or mentally disturbed, then I'm sure you will leave the practice and you blame on the practice. You would say, this practice is not suitable to me. I did practice for a long time, years and years in the past, but now my situation is not changed at all. So you blame on the teachers, you blame on the masters, you blame on the lineage and you blame on the teaching itself. So this means he or she is not on the true path. So before blindly assuming the forms of Dhamma, check your own state carefully, first to see whether or not you have all 34 aspects of the freedoms and advantages. So don't assume, here it says, don't assume everything. Make sure right or wrong with your proper examination. Examination sense in with the study, contemplation, meditation. With these three factors you can examine, not with the other factors at all. So the blindly assuming the forms of the Dhamma is your biggest mistake. Sometimes you participate teaching for 1 or 2 days, then when you hear the teachings say, oh, it's quite boring teaching, right? Then you walk away. But it's not boring teaching, because a boring person is there. You are a boring person. So therefore, you are lacking to perceive this profound teaching, and it appears to you as a boring teaching. So eventually, everything is boring. Meditation is boring, teaching is boring, practice is boring. So you remain in the state of boring all the time. So if you do have them all, the qualities, rejoice and reflect deeply on them over and over again. Why over and over? Why repeatedly we have to do? Because over and over means the negative or afflictive, the tendency is very heavy and profound. So 1 or 2 or few times you apply would not be beneficial. So over and over, again and again, until you bring teachings into the practice, you have to do it repeatedly. So remind yourself how, now that you have finally gained these freedom and advantages that are so difficult to find, you are not going to squander them. Whatever happens, you are going to practice the true Dhamma. Should you find, however, that some aspects are missing, try to acquire them by whatever means may be possible. So at all times you should take pains to examine carefully whether or not you have all elements of the freedom and the advantages. If you fail to check, then what will happen? If you fail to check and any one of those elements should be lacking, you will be missing the chance to practice the Dhamma truly. So the examination is need to be performed each and every time. After all, even the execution of a single minor everyday task requires many the mutually dependent the materials and the conditions to be brought together. It is any wonder that the realization of our ultimate goal, Dhamma, is impossible without the conjunction of many incorrected factors. So it's kind of a serious training your mind, serious practice, because even to catch the slightest the piece of Dhamma is so difficult. Doing Dhamma practice is not so easy. Problem is we take practice very lightly and simply. And you are scared of hard work, diligence, and continuity, because you want limited time and duration. If you find out that teaching is only for 1 week or 2 weeks, then you feel it's suitable to me to participate. If your teaching is 3 months, 4 months, then you will say, oh, I got a job, I have a family, I have this and that factors, I may not be able to participate. You see, your practices depends on the factor, situation, circumstance. So circumstances make you not free. And when you do strict, if someone recommend you do strict retreat, and you are hesitate to do it, isn't it? And you will say, oh, I cannot do that strict retreat, maybe semi-retreat, right? Semi-retreat means maybe after 2 weeks or after 2 days you can walk away. And the excuse is say that, oh, my father is sick, or my uncle is sick, or my money is run out, my visa is expiring, my ticket cannot change, flight is full. So there are a lot of excuses to run away from this strict retreat. So you always say semi-retreat. Sounds very beautiful. Semi-retreat I'm doing, not strict. Even strict you will say how long? 1 week? Okay, I can afford. But 2 weeks, that's too much for me. So you see, every practice you do is very much depends on the condition and the situation and the circumstances that will never let you be free. Your problems, difficulties. So it's not easy when we do Dhamma practice. Not easy at all. Not easy. If a teacher comes to you, then you feel simple and easy. My teacher is here in Kathmandu. Or if you are in Germany, or if you are in France or in wherever in the UK, if you find out, oh, teacher is in London, oh, so easy, I just go there, take a train or a taxi, very easy to approach this master. But if teacher is in Asia, whereas you are in the West, so teaching is here in Kathmandu or in India, then you cannot come. But a long time back, the diligence and the practice with the master is a totally different story. They take the difficulty parts. They take the hardship part. They walk months and months and months. They never ride on horse. They walk to approach that master, to get the teaching. Because they value the teaching more important than their own life. They take the risk. Walk anywhere. But nowadays it's different. Even you want to come here, you will check first. Is there a guest house? Yes. Do they have a hot water? Yes. Do they have a food? Yes. Vegetarian or non-vegetarian? Vegetarian. Okay. So there are a lot of checks you do before you participate in this teaching, right? So complication is still there. See, every circumstances is your disturbance now. Disturb you. Come here, disturb you to participate teaching, disturb you to retreat. So many obstacles are there. So that's why I'm saying the totally image of the practice is totally different from the good old days and now. So to get rid of these complications, one should open your mind. Think of those great masters, how sacrificed their life for the benefiting of sentient beings. They don't care their own life. They take the highest risk to make an accomplishment of their practice. They take the risk, they take the difficult path, they take the hardship, they give up the easiest part because they think the easiest part practice is not going to lead anywhere. So they think the hardship, difficulties, and the hard work with the Dhamma practices they have chosen. Therefore, impossible to make the accomplishment with your practice if you're always trapped in these circumstances. So that's all for today. Thank you. So we'll continue tomorrow.